Traders, welcome to the channel, and today we're talking about Sundial. Now, I've got a lot of questions. Where would I be buying this? And if you've been tuning into the lives and you know, the buy zone for this for me was $1. Now, I didn't get to get into it because I was hanging out with my son and I was doing a few day trades while I had him, so I just didn't have enough time to look at the long-term portfolio or look at stuff on that aspect of things. I wasn't really focused on Thursday there, but we did hit the dollar range and we bounced very, very nicely. We're gonna do a little bit of fundamentals, why I do like this company, why I think the financials do look pretty decent compared to some of their competitors, and the potential upside with this company, because I believe Sundial does have some pretty decent room to keep going on the upside. I do like what's going on, and I'm gonna get right into that here in a little bit. But before we get into that content, I need you to do one thing and one thing only. Hit that sub button down below, leave a thumbs up, and have the notifications turned on. We post videos every single day regarding the stocks that we love and the stocks that we're trading. Let's not waste any more time. Let's get to it. Okay, so in the video, I'm going to give you a little bit of news going on with Sundial, but there's not really that much. This is basically based on fundamentals and then as well as the technicals that go along with it. Now, I believe the chart looks very, very good. The problem with Sundial right now is that the Nasdaq and all indexes are taking an absolute beating. So Sundial is traded on the Nasdaq. They actually hit that dollar range. They're going to be listed on them. They have no more of the warrants or none of the kind of like scary part of getting delisted from the Nasdaq going on. So that's very bullish in the short and long-term aspect of them. And the company also has no debt on record. So that's very, very good, especially in this sector. Most of these companies have debt on their records, so keep that in mind. Now, they're not profitable, but they're on the road to profitability. Let's get into that content. All right, so we've been talking about Sundial, and as we look at the chart, we're near that $1 range, which I talked about. We hit it, went a little bit deeper below it, but we bounced pretty strong. There's one thing I do want to talk about, and bear with me, Motley Fool's kind of terrible, but I think they have a few points here in the article. Now, I like what they're talking about. Sundial has kind of seen stagnation overall. Now, they don't have any debt on the books, but they talked about seeing some alternative methods to increase growth as a company, right? That was the big part in what they talked about. They wanted to see something change, right? There's a lot of speculation going about them. Are they going to acquire someone? They talked about buying Oxy Cannabis Group. That was worth mentioning. That kind of fell through. It's good that they're not forcing their hands and buying something they don't really need just for news, right? That's good. That's good by the company. They're making kind of smart decisions. They don't want to get dead again. I understand. News of a deal are coming out. Insight that could ramp speculation on the stock and send it to the stratosphere. All the moon talk, Wall Street bets, honestly, crazy stuff could happen. But if there isn't any news on that front and Sundial delivers a lackluster results, they do have earnings coming out very, very soon, it could have the opposite effect on the stock. Whatever results development come out on March 17th, expect them to have move in a very volatile stock in a big way. So I don't think that that's true. I don't think that they're going to just move volatile either way. Now, if Wall Street bets gets involved, I don't think they move or dump on the downward or upward trend. Like I said, if you're getting to the stock now, I think the $1 range is a long-term perspective and place to kind of like the stock overall. Now, their earnings are going to be important. Now, they're saying they're crucial. I don't think they're super crucial, but they could definitely hold them down. That's going to be something pretty key. But as you look at all the companies in the sector, their earnings typically aren't that good. So you're looking okay, but they're saying that they need something, and then this is their own fault because they did come out and say that they were going to have some news to kind of change up this sector of the business and kind of change the overall structure of it to increase revenue and kind of outlook, because they're not really doing that good when it comes to wholesaling. They're not doing that good. Like, their competition's killing them, kind of. Like Tilray, Afria, they're merging. You have other companies as well, CGC. They're all doing better than Sundial. Sundial's kind of stagnating. That's why they're worth $1. That's just what's happening. Now, leadership is trying to change the structure, and this can be hard when you're trying to change the structure. Now, what they're doing is smart. They're not just throwing money. They're not just burning it. They're not just praying something works. They're not just getting into different products and just expanding in weird directions. They're kind of trying to stay narrowed down into the product and sector they want and find the perfect fit. Now, this can be slow. This can kind of hurt the stock in the longer term viewpoint, but this is kind of good news for the stock. And I wasn't always a bull on Sundial, but once they held above $1, once we get that initial push to $4, thesis changed because they're no longer held or going to be delisted from the Nasdaq. So I like them for the next year or so, give or take. They're going to be pretty decent in this sector, and they're very, very cheap. And overall, they're moving as we expect. So we're getting into the chart here in a sec. So, just bear with me. But there are some great news and reasons to be bullish on the stock, including its new cash on hand. Yes, it has about $600 million cash on hand, as you see right here. That's enough reason and money to buy Oxy Cannabis Group. did fall through. I don't know why they're even mentioning it. That's why I said, you know, take some of these articles with a grain of salt. That deal did fall through. They said they didn't want them. They didn't really give a reason, but they didn't want them. That's enough to buy that group, yada yada, which has a valuation of 264 million and claims to be the top spot in cannabis 2.0 markets, edibles, vapes, etc. in Canada. I'm not saying that will happen, but it's an example of the potential with Sundial. Now, I don't think Sundial wants to focus on this type of the market, right? They want to do what they're doing, but make it better and make more money doing it. Now, I think they want to make money in general, but I don't think they're trying to completely change the shape of their business. You know what I mean? I don't think that's their goal. So that's really, really important. But let's take a look at the chart and I'll show you some things, but I don't think a merger or them buying a company is going to happen immediately. That's what I want to point out right now. So people are talking about that. I don't think that's an immediate thing here in the immediate future. I like what they're doing. I think they have upside, but don't expect that in the near-term future. Okay, so here's the chart. This is the 15-minute chart, so bear with me, but we're seeing great price action, right? This is where we get that last like squeeze, whatever you want to call it. We're at that dollar range. I mentioned everyone's asking me live, Tyler, where would you buy? You haven't made an up down Sundial in a while. What's going on? Well, overall, it's followed the trend of what we expected. If you follow the last videos, we were sitting in this range. I mentioned we'd probably get a push up, a push down, some trending, another push down to this range. Now, I wasn't positive if we'd push down below 115, but you know, the market has been crashing over the past 2 weeks. As you've seen, we've trended sideways. We eventually came back below $1. So that is worth mentioning. Someone was asking, where would I buy? So with the market dumping so badly, where I would buy is kind of my absolute bottom short term, which is that $1 range. Now, let's say in theory, we push down and we hold below $1 on a day. If we push back, I would most likely sell my positions and then I would expect more downside to come just because we held below that massive, massive support. So that's what I'm looking at there in the short term on Sundial. So take that into account, take it with a grain of salt, whatever you want to expect. But this is where I would have bought for myself personally. But like I said, I was busy. I wasn't able to get into it. But I like it. They've seen about a 14% bounce from that range. So it's doing very, very good. And I would expect it to at least get a push up to that 140 range, the monthly open for March. So it doesn't look bad. It doesn't look terrible. I do see the upside. I like what's going on. But it's getting above VWAP as well. It's not looking absolutely terrible. We can look at the OBV. And the OBV, like I said, it's just staying at these high levels, right? The buyers are staying there. That's worth mentioning. There's a lot of buyers sitting in the stock. So with decent earnings, with some good outlook, the stock could absolutely take off to $1.70. Honestly, that would be my capped out target. Now, if we go parabolic and we get some type of squeeze or something, who knows what could happen. But overall, the trend looks fine. If you're looking at it, we're getting a push up. We came down. Now we're trending sideways. Now we're not getting an immediate dump. We get a dump from those immediate levels, like I mentioned. We probably would. But now we're trending sideways, we're flatlining out, and I want to see us just trend above $1. The dollar is where I personally like my entries for this stock, but the OBV is holding up at these extremely, extremely high levels that we saw once we got this very large push. You know what I mean? So we're sitting at these high levels, buyers are still there. It's still a good stock. People are holding it as well. That's worth noting, and it doesn't look absolutely terrible. Okay, so with Sundial, there is probably a little bit more that could cover, but I don't want to just dive in on going a bunch of random stuff. What's going to be big is the earnings coming up. Now, if you did get into some positions around that $1 range, I'm not going to give you advice. This is never financial advice. It's just my opinion on what I see going with the stock, giving you some news going on with it as well, and then looking at the technicals and just seeing how the chart looks. And this is just overall an opinion on what's going on. So always take what I say with a grain of salt. Do your own due diligence. Never make a financial decision based on someone on YouTube, unless it's from the CEO. Then I'd probably take some, I take that with a pretty large grain of salt. So other than that, looking at the company, I like them. The worrisome part is going to be earnings. That could be pretty negative for these guys. I don't see them dumping immediately below $1 if the earnings are absolutely terrible and they come out and say, we don't expect anything to change, which I doubt that they do. I think they'll have something in the works. We haven't heard anything out of them for a while, so that is worth noting. Now, I don't think the merger is very soon. I see them announcing that they're looking heavily for a merger. That's going to be the thing. They have a lot of cash on hand. They have the ability to buy. They have that ability to make that next step, but they're taking their time doing it, which overall long-term is good because chances are when they find that person, it's going to be a really good match, and that's good for the portfolio in the long term because you don't want CEOs and companies just jumping in on people and just winging it. That's not what you want. And so I like that their company is taking their time making this decision, and it's overall not that bad of news. Now, Sundial in the sector, they're not my favorite play, but they're in the top two. I would say they're my number 2 play. High Tide's definitely the best play in the sector in my opinion, but Sundial is looking pretty good as well. A lot of these companies' financials are absolutely terrible. They're in debt and stuff like that. Sundial's at least not in debt. Their financials aren't amazing. They need to get a spark or a jump start at least in their revenue to get it bumping back up. But overall, they don't look terrible. I do like them. Sundial, scale 1 to 10, longer term aspect, 7.8, close to an 8.0. I do like them a lot. Short term, we could also see a 70-cent push. So short term, risk to reward at this $1.10 range for me personally, I put them at like an 8.7, close to a 9, just because there's so much room at this dollar range. But this is just my personal opinion. Do your own due diligence. Never act on my decisions alone. That is just absolute stupidity. I'm just a YouTuber. I go to school. I'm graduating this year in finance, but that doesn't make me qualified to give anyone advice, and I'm not a financial advisor. So again, do your own due diligence. Have a good one, boys, and don't forget to subscribe down below. Namaste.